All right, guys, so I did want to discuss the recent renderings that were released on a proposed ballpark in Utah. Apparently, Salt Lake City is looking at getting a potential expansion MLB franchise, or maybe possibly getting the Oakland Athletics or Tampa Bay Rays if either of them do end up moving. Now, before I get into the actual renderings, I do want to say that when it comes to the MLB and expansion, Manfred has said multiple times that he wants the Athletics and the Rays stadium situations to be solved before expansion franchises happen. And this whole Utah situation, it kind of feels like it's more of an expansion, although you'll see in articles they do say maybe the Athletics, instead of going to Vegas, they go to Utah. Taking a look at the photos, this is kind of what they do when they say, oh, we want a team. They'll bring out some renderings. And I got to be honest, guys, my initial thoughts, if you're going to bring out a whole shebang about how you should get an MLB team, I'm going to need a better stadium design than this, folks. I mean, this is... it's very simplistic. I understand that it's just an early rendering, but again, I want to be wowed. I mean, you can see those smokestacks out there. Very, very unbelievable view. Possibly, if that actually is the view with those mountains in the background, I don't know if this is legitimate or not, because maybe they're just putting them back there because this is Utah. But if you could somehow incorporate the mountains, that would be amazing. I wonder what the altitude issue might be in Utah compared to Colorado, because I don't think the MLB would want another Colorado situation. I mean, the Rockies, I'm not saying you can't win in Colorado, but it is virtually impossible to develop young pitching with those environments that they have. Coors Field is just ridiculous. Young pitchers get destroyed. They have no confidence because of the altitude. Coors Field just way too offensive friendly. I don't know what the altitude situation is here, but you can see, they've got a nice little green patch going back to that with the batter's eye. They've got some trees out there looking at it. Looks like they've got possibly a man-made lake or river right beyond center field. They've got some, those smokestacks or whatever they are. Just taking a look at an aerial photo, you can see they've got a nice roof covering a lot of the upper deck and lower deck. That's something we've seen recently with the Buffalo Bills deciding to go with an outdoor stadium. This is a breath of fresh air, considering we know if Vegas gets the Athletics, it 1000% will be a dome. It's not going to be retractable. It's just too hot. It doesn't make any sense. But here is the actual story. Salt Lake City Group hopes to gain MLB expansion team. That was released today. And there you can see the area where they want it. And then it says a Salt Lake City group led by the former owner of the Utah Jazz plans to pursue a Major League Baseball franchise in the coming years, touting the area's population growth, strong economy, and baseball history as draws for a coveted expansion slot. People involved with the project told ESPN. Big League Utah, a group headed by longtime Jazz owner Gail Miller, will join Nashville's Music City Baseball and the Portland Diamond Project in lobbying to join the current 30 MLB organizations. Las Vegas, considered a prime destination for a franchise, has emerged as a strong candidate if the Oakland Athletics relocate. So this is coming from ESPN. Looks like we're talking about 4 cities. We might get the 2 relocations and then right after the 2 expansions. My prediction still, I think Vegas gets the A's. I think Nashville gets the Rays. And then I think if they do want to expand 2 more, then you're talking about Portland and Utah, but I don't think they would do both Portland and Utah. That seems kind of repetitive with 2 teams out west. They would probably do either Portland or Utah, and then someone maybe from the middle of the country or more East Coast, maybe a place in Virginia, something like that. I know they talked about that in the early 2000s, but that is just my speculation. While sources said MLB does not plan to expand until it figures out futures for the A's and Rays, both of whom have considered moving amid struggles to secure new stadiums in their current areas. Rob Manfred told ESPN last July, "I would love to get 32 teams." So they certainly want to get to the 32 teams. The only issue is the stadium situation with the Rays and the A's. Once they get both of them either in new stadiums or moved, then they'll talk about expansion, and this is where the expansion might come into play. To me, it doesn't make much sense for the Athletics to move to Utah, although maybe the MLB would rather the Athletics move to Utah because the Athletics are in a horrible spot and then just start fresh with a brand new expansion team in Las Vegas. And then the article later talks about the stadium's potential location. Building a stadium in the Rocky Mountain Power District, a 100-acre mixed use located between Salt Lake City's new airport and its downtown core, an investment that would come on top of an expected $2 billion expansion fee. And then they just talk about how big Salt Lake City is. We know Utah, they have the Jazz, and certainly them getting a baseball team. It would definitely be an outdoor stadium. They have great summers in Salt Lake City for sure with really good weather, and it would be kind of a breath of fresh air, both figuratively and literally. Again, we've been dealing with all these domes. We're talking about, Globe Life Field, the last MLB stadium was a dome. Vegas is going to be a dome. If Tampa Bay builds a new stadium, it's a dome for sure. So, actually, it might not be, well, probably it will, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think Tampa Bay will move, but, these are just the early renderings. I'm sure we'll get a more clear picture, but, the early renderings I'm seeing, I'm not going to overreact to it, but it does, they're going with these really, really simple designs with very limited capacity. It seems like the capacity of this stadium would be about 36,000 maybe. I mean, I don't know. I'm just randomly throwing a number out there, but it's certainly not 40K. Just looking at it, looking at the outfield seating, looking at how big the upper deck is. This is just my speculation, but we saw with the recent, renderings with the A's, some of it's due to horrible attendance, but their capacity of their potential stadium at Howard Terminal is like 30,000, and then with Tampa Bay, it's like 32,000 or 30. So the stadiums are getting smaller within the MLB. I want to see what Vegas has in terms of a rendering and a potential capacity to their dome, if that does end up happening. But it seems like my best guess right now, this would be more of an expansion team down the line. You would have the next thing happening being Vegas getting the A's, Nashville getting the Rays, and then possibly both Portland and Utah as major contenders for the expansion to 32 teams. I don't think they would choose both of those teams because they're both out west and they want to balance it more. But and if they're already getting Vegas would be coming from Oakland, so they would be staying out west. But they'd probably want to balance it. You'd get one West Coast, one East Coast, or maybe someplace like San Antonio, I know, is a major ask, although we do have, teams in Texas. So we'll see what happens with a potential expansion. I think the overall key to a ballpark in Salt Lake City is the view of the mountains. You're going to have very limited seating in the outfield. You're going to probably not have any upper deck outfield seating or second tier. I would focus heavily on maximizing the view of the mountains if they can do that, if they can build the stadium right near the mountains. I really don't love the all-green design, like the green seating and kind of like all the, trees and things like that. But that might just be an early rendering. I'm sure this is going to change a lot. This would be something that would be well down the line, if it even happens, if an expansion team happens in Utah. It will be super interesting to see if MLB chooses Salt Lake. It will be super interesting to see if MLB chooses Salt Lake over Nashville, Portland, and Vegas as expansion relocation cities. Yeah, I don't think they would. They'd be choosing anyone. I think with expansion versus relocation is different. I think if the MLB had it their way, Vegas for sure would be getting a team. And then probably if you're the MLB, next on the list would be Nashville. That's just my speculation on what the MLB would want. Maybe I'm overrating the market in Nashville and underrating Salt Lake City, but that's just kind of my vibe on how big the markets are. I would say Vegas for sure. And it's really not even just the market, because I know a lot of people say there's fair weather fans with Vegas and things like that. It's the gambling aspect of it. I mean, it's all sports. It's crazy. You look on the bottom of the screen, there's odds like you look MLB Network, they've got, oh my God, the live odds of the game. The Yankees are up 4-0 on the money line. They're minus 600. It's like, dude, I mean, come on. Do we really need to see that? But that's how obsessed it is, because gambling and all the sponsorships are paying so much money to get their odds up on the screen and get people hooked to betting on all this stuff. So I think they certainly want to get to Vegas. That's got to be the biggest goal for them. And then after that, I would say Nashville, and then I'd say Salt Lake City, and then I'd say Portland. I mean, Portland, I hear they have major crime issues. I'd have to see the numbers. I don't know for sure. But Portland has the Trailblazers. I mean, look, the Trailblazers are in a tough spot right now. They have to rebuild, but they still have a star player, so it's tough. But either way, that is the situation surrounding a potential expansion/relocation team in Utah. But guys, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.